to the Plant Fit Summit, bringing you the best in plant-based health and fitness. This is Luke and Toby, and today we have Robert Cheeke. Robert is an author and motivational speaker. Well known for his career as a vegan bodybuilder, he is also one of the pioneers of the vegan bodybuilding and fitness movement. Today, we chat about the practical tips to build the body that you want, whether it's for muscle gain or fat loss. We start the conversation with Robert sharing about the beginnings of vegan bodybuilding and fitness. Enjoy the presentation.
Yeah, well, it started a long time ago. I became vegan age 15 back in 1995 before the internet, so we couldn't do this kind of interview. No internet, no Skype back then. And I was a skinny kid. I was 120 pounds. You know, I still consider myself oftentimes a skinny kid. But back then I was 120 pounds, but I wanted to get bigger and stronger. I didn't know what bodybuilding was, but I knew what pro wrestling was and what muscle guys were and muscle magazines from the grocery store. And when you're a small kid and small, skinny runner your whole life, it's just something you kind of wonder what it would be like to be bigger and stronger. And so after 5 years as a competitive runner, including in college, I decided I would start lifting some weights and see how that would go. And I struggled at first, but found a way to put on some muscle. And then I started veganbodybuilding.com. I wrote the website in about 2002. We went online 2003 and developed a forum that connected me with many people I'm still friends with today. And that's what, 2003. So almost 15 years later, now we have quite a bit bigger community, and still people that I'm connecting with on a regular basis from that website and from things that have developed since then.
For sure. So since then to now, do you see the growth in the plant-based fitness movement and plant-based athletes? Do you see more of them around?
Yeah, I mean, I just came back from the gym 30 minutes ago, and I bumped into another champion vegan bodybuilder at the gym, Will Tucker. That was just randomly. I was just doing my rows, rowing on the machine, and here comes Will. And that happens on a regular basis. I bump into plant-based athletes at airports, on airplanes, in hotels, grocery stores, clothing stores. I bump into people all the time now who say, hey, I'm familiar with vegan bodybuilding, or I have your book or whatever, or they're connected through some other way. So that's just when I'm out and about. But in a more formal way, we have vegan festivals that are all over the world on a regular basis. I just came back from one that had 30,000 people at it in Los Angeles, which was just packed. I mean, you can imagine tens of thousands of people all at a vegan festival. There'll be another one I'm going to this weekend, 15,000 people, also in Los Angeles. I came back from Nashville, Tennessee, down in the South, in the United States, considered kind of the South. 6,000 or 7,000 people. This is from Australia to Europe to Canada to Mexico to all over the place, these vegan festivals. And with that, of course, are plenty of vegan athletes, plenty of plant-based athletes that are speakers, that are exhibitors, that are on tour, that are sharing their books, sharing their knowledge. And it is definitely something I've watched grow largely over the last 15 years to a place now where there's more vegan athletes than we can count. They're out there in basically every professional sport. So exciting time for sure.
Yeah, it is amazing, right? And you mentioned you started off like when you were 15 years old. Yeah. So to get that question out of the way, all your muscles are based on eating plant-based.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I started, like I said, 120 pounds. I've peaked at 210 pounds. I don't know what that is in kilos. You tell me. But, 90 something kilos, whatever is what I've been at. And I built all of that with plant-based foods. Absolutely. And in fact, for the last 5 years, on a primarily whole food diet, no sports supplements, just vitamin B12 is my only supplement. So I've been a little bit different in that regard, where I don't do 5 protein drinks like I used to. I don't do lots of protein bars or any. I don't do lots of other sports supplements. I just decided to eat food and see how that would work. and I'm still, I'm just a little bit under 200 pounds right now, but I've been leaning out a bit and feel good, still feel strong, and I think that approach has been one that I've embraced and really enjoy lately.
Cool. I want to visit that because I've got both your books. I've got Vegan Bodybuilding and Fitness and Shred It, and your new book, Plant-Based Muscle, which is coming out. We'll chat about that later. So,
Yeah.
I remember seeing one of your meal plans in Vegan Bodybuilding and Fitness. 6,000 calories.
Yeah.
200 grams of protein. I can't remember how many grams of carbs. It was huge, Robert. To where you are right now is such a contrast. Could you just share with us the evolution of your nutritional perspective and why?
Yeah, so I was your typical hard gainer, I guess, if you will. A skinny kid, had a very rough time putting on muscle. It was hard for me to add mass, muscle size, strength, weight in general. And so I started eating a lot of calories. I noticed that I wasn't building the kind of muscle that I wanted to for a number of factors. But as soon as I started being a little more consistent with my nutrition program, I started just putting more calories in, I was able to get bigger. And I went 3,000 calories and then 4,000 calories. And then I averaged 5,000 calories every day and up to 300 grams of protein a day, every day for a period of time. And naturally that worked for me. I think it would work for most people. If you eat 5,000 calories and combine it with some sort of exercise, especially resistance weight training, you're probably going to build some sort of muscle. Now, was it the best way? Was it the healthiest way? Probably not. I don't think so. In fact, I challenged my prior self in the book Shredded. I kind of challenged my own ideas I had in vegan bodybuilding, which were to eat thousands of calories and lots of processed foods and hundreds of grams of protein. I realized that maybe that's not the best approach. I was eating a lot of processed foods, as you know, a lot of tofu, hot dogs, burgers, breads, pastas, things like that. And then I started working for Forks Over Knives in 2011. And while I was working for Forks Over Knives, the people in the office kind of teased me a little bit for doing like such high protein and a drink for everything, a pre-workout drink, a during workout drink, a post-workout drink, all these different things where they kind of tease. Robert's got a special potion for something, to tie his shoes, to walk across the room, to lift up a book. And so I started looking at that approach a little bit differently. And then I finally decided to enroll in Dr. T. Colin Campbell's plant-based nutrition course through the Center of Nutrition Studies through Cornell University, an online course. And in that course, I learned a lot about plant-based nutrition from the science perspective. And that challenged my ideas that I had about protein consumption, about processed foods, about supplementation, about whole foods. And I decided I would do the one thing that so many people, including thousands of plant-based athletes, are unwilling to try or afraid to try. And that was to just simply put it to the test. And so basically overnight, after Dr. T. Colin Campbell's course, or in fact during the course, I think, I just cut out all sport supplements. I reduced my protein intake by 2/3, perhaps, or certainly in half, cut it in half. I cut my calories substantially. I upped my intake of real plant-based whole foods rather than processed foods, and I reduced the processed food consumption. And I tested that out and see how things went. And as it turns out, things went really well. I was still able to maintain muscle mass. I was able to boost energy. I was able to have success in both bodybuilding and running, two very extreme opposite ends of the spectrum of sports, one endurance, one strength and power. And I've been doing that ever since. I found that logically fit my interest, and it seemed to make the most sense to eat fewer calories, but they're more productive calories, and making further progress without having to digest all the other heavy foods. And so that's what I do these days. And that's why I wrote Shred It. And that's why Shred It was my new philosophy, my new focus, my new emphasis, because I realized a lot of the ideas in vegan bodybuilding were old ideas I wasn't following anymore, and I just learned more. I just had a better understanding, and so I decided I would write about that and share that information.
Yeah, I find it fascinating because the perception is that when people transition from let's say even a non-plant-based lifestyle to a plant-based lifestyle, they would just substitute, whey protein with a plant-based protein supplement or whatever. And it sounds like what you're saying, that's not even necessary.
Right. I have a very strange approach. It's almost an oxymoron in bodybuilding, is that I actually have a deliberate low protein approach. I go out of my way to keep my protein fairly low. And that, as you know, is certainly not the norm. It's just today I was at the gym on this, finishing my hour and 20-minute back workout. And then I was on the Stairmaster and listening to the guys next to me talking about just their approach to hundreds of grams of protein and chicken and fish and all these different things. And it's just my approach to a low protein diet is not something that's normal or very well accepted in bodybuilding. Yet during this time, I've been able to, at some point over the last 5 years, depending on what my interest was, whether it's lifting weights at the time or running at the time. When it was lifting weights, I was able to achieve my all-time highest body weight on a low-protein diet, my all-time highest strength, my greatest strength, pressing 330 pounds on decline bench, for example, using 120-pound dumbbells for chest press, and I was able to set a course record in endurance running and be able to finish in the top 5 in every race that I ran with this approach. So it seemed to be efficient for me, and that's why I stick with it, because it seems to make sense.
So I want to revisit, Robert, about your nutrition now versus your nutrition then. So you mentioned you were eating high protein, a lot of processed foods, versus where you are now, whole food, plant-based. What was your digestion like back then versus what's your digestion like right now?
To some degree, there's various forms of bloating or feeling full or whatever, regardless of super high calories or super amounts of supplements or not. Just sometimes the nature of certain types of foods, beans and legumes and other foods that tend to be a little bit, even in their whole food state, they tend to be a little bit harder on the stomach, harder for digestion. Cruciferous vegetables, which we know are some of the most nutritious and some of the best foods around, also, they can be a bit tough for digestion, large amounts of cauliflower, broccoli, etc. So that being said, I have been able to notice, when I was eating thousands of calories, I would fall asleep, like eating a Cliff Bar, just trying to reach 5,000 calories for the day. I'd just be, come on, Robert, you got to get, 200 more calories, just stuff it in. So I was full, I was stuffed. My stomach was upset. I ate, my record was 18 tofu hot dogs in one day. I think a dozen bagels, bread bagels in one day, 7 Cliff Bars, which is 1,500 calories or more in just these little, Cliff energy bars. These are staggering numbers. And on top of that, I was consuming many supplements, many sports supplements, some to the point that I was having this conversation at a vegan meetup yesterday, actually. We were talking about creatine consumption, and I would use creatine and it would upset my stomach so much that I couldn't even work out. I couldn't finish the workout. I'd have to go home. It hurt my stomach. I'd have to leave the gym. And there was a certain amount of gas and bloating that comes from having 4 or 5 protein drinks a day. In fact, I lived in a house with about 3 or 4 other vegan people. None of them were bodybuilders, but they were all vegans or athletes, cyclists, or just, vegan, maybe non-athletes. But I remember they even had a house complaint of like, there's, what is going on? There seems to be this strange aroma in the house. And, it was like a group email to all the people who lived together. And it was a result of me consuming 5 protein drinks a day and getting ready for bodybuilding competitions. And so I had to, reply, "Oh, my bad," getting ready for competition, and That's what happens. So compare that to now, where I eat mostly large amounts of fruits. I'm aiming to eat more leafy greens all the time. I eat a lot of brown rice, oats, potatoes, yams, beans, lentils, and that food seems to be easier for me. And the most important thing, though, I think, is that I need dramatically fewer calories. I don't need to stuff myself with 4,000 or 5,000, or as you mentioned, Luke, 6,000 calories to achieve the same muscle building results as I can do consuming 3,000 calories, because there's more nutrients in the calories that I'm consuming now from whole foods.
Yeah, it's very interesting. You mentioned gaining muscle, right? So that's the topic that I would like to dive in a bit deeper as well, in terms of how do you calculate, or do you even calculate how many calories do you need? Because you mentioned, if you stuff yourself with calories and you do resistance training, you gain muscle there, right? That's like the simple concept. So I'd like to dig a bit deeper into how does a meal plan look like? How do you calculate how many calories are enough or not, and what do they consist of?
Yeah, good question. And it's something that I actually like to talk a lot about in my lectures, because I think it's very important. For example, I give lectures, and I sometimes start by asking, the large room of people, let's say, has anyone here ever had the goal of let's say burning fat? It could be burning muscle. I mean, building muscle. I could ask whatever question, but I often pick fat burning because most of us have had that goal at some point in our life. And so, almost every hand goes up. I've had this goal of burning fat. So then I said, okay, so if you've had this as your goal, then clearly each of you who raised your hand must know precisely, based on your gender, age, height, weight, and very importantly, activity level, exactly how many calories you expend every day and how many calories you consume every day. Everyone knows that, right? And then, of course, there's very few hands, if any. And the reason why that is important to me and what I talk about in my lectures is because there are plenty of people who are well-meaning, motivated, driven, they care, they've got goals, New Year's resolutions, they want to burn fat or they want to build muscle, and they absolutely don't put themselves in a position to do so. They say, why am I not losing weight? Why am I not burning fat? I'm working out hard, I'm doing this and that, but maybe they're burning 1,800 calories a day and consuming 2,600 calories a day, a surplus of 800 calories every single day, which compounds over the course of a week, right? That's going to be hundreds, hundreds or thousands over the course, or sorry, in this case, thousands over the course of a week, thousands over the course of a month, tens or hundreds of thousands of extra calories over the course of a year. This stuff matters to me. And the reason it matters to me is because over my 20 plus years as a plant-based athlete, I've gone through many phases where I tried to achieve a specific goal and I wasn't able to do it. I tried to build muscle, but I was maybe burning 2,600, let's say 2,800 calories a day while consuming 2,400, or burning 3,500 calories a day while consuming 2,800. I was in a deficit every day. I mean, it's just compounding day after day, all week long, all month long, and wondering why I'm not building muscle. How come I'm not building muscle? And so the thing I like to encourage everyone to do these days, I'm not suggesting that everyone become a calorie counter and count everything that you eat. But I think it's very important to give yourself a week or two to document every single thing that you eat and document all of your calories expended through exercise and through metabolism, and see where you're at, and understand truly, based on your gender, age, height, weight, and very importantly, activity level, how many calories are you really burning every day? And what are you really eating? And this will be eye-opening for most people. I mean, it could be dramatically eye-opening for some. Some people could realize, I had no idea that I ate whatever this is. Vegan ice cream to the tune of a certain number of calories every single day. Or they could say, wow, I didn't realize that even though our bodies are 70% water, our muscles are 70% water, our brain 70% water, I don't really drink any water during the day. These are things that we realize over time. Or I didn't realize that I've been vegan for 20 years, but the last time I had a green salad was in August, and now it's many months later. I mean, these are true things that can reveal themselves for people. So, and I've seen dramatic success happen, even for me, when I've been able to be accountable and transparent with myself. And it's not always easy. It's not always fun to say, Robert, come on, man. You have these goals. You're trying to achieve something, burning fat or building muscle, but you're just eating these frozen vegan dinners all the time that are full of fat and oils and processed foods and low nutrition and just lots and lots of calories. I have to call myself out sometimes on that kind of stuff. What am I really eating? And that's what I encourage everyone to do, to reveal what's going on behind the scenes and what can we do with that awareness. Now that we have that information, how can we tweak it or change it in order to better serve our overall goals and interests? How can we have better digestion? How can we have more energy? How can we simply change our nutrient intake to have greater levels of antioxidants or nitric oxide through eating more dark pigment berries or leafy greens? These are things that can be very important for people. Mm-hmm. So that's my approach these days, is understand where you truly are and where you want to go and be able to mend those together to put yourself in the best position to be successful.
Yeah, so how would I go about tracking? Is there any tools, apps, obviously, that you would recommend?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And am I okay? I keep noticing the sun keeps going down here in Arizona. And it's like this arm is in the sun and this one's not. We okay there?
Perfect.
Okay, I noticed I have these tiger stripes on my arm. It's like a battle.
They highlight the biceps, so it's all
okay. Good. We'll make sure I stand in the sun here. How can you go about doing that exactly? I wrote about this as kind of the main theme of Shred It, actually. This Harris-Benedict equation, which takes our basal metabolic rate and combines it with our true activity level, which documents so how often do you exercise and to what level of intensity and for what duration, and it will tell you approximately how many calories you burned during your hike or your mountain biking or your aerobics class or your weight training session or your 5K. And you take just your general basal metabolic rate, which you can easily find out through a basal metabolic rate calculator online, and combine it with your activity level through, I found the Harris-Benedict calculator to be the easiest. Mm-hmm. You can just simply input stuff on a Harris-Benedict calculator and it spits out numbers for you and you're done. So I found that to be really, really helpful and even eye-opening for me too, even though I've done this many times over the years. And I'm able to determine, based on me being 37-year-old, 6 foot tall, 200-pound male, training 5 days a week for an hour and 20 minutes a day, I'm burning 3,200 calories a day. So what does that mean for me, for Robert? What that means for consuming 3,200 calories a day, which is based on my true metrics for me to maintain weight, is something that I've got to do to maintain this 200-pound frame, which is hard for someone like me who just genetically and naturally has a thinner body type. I naturally, the moment I stop lifting weights, I drop down to 170 pounds. But if I want to maintain 200 pounds, like I am roughly right now, then I need to keep my calories up to 3,200 calories or more. And if I want to gain, I was 210 pounds not too long ago, maybe 6 months ago. And I was eating much higher calories, over 4,000 calories a day. Now, granted, I had some body fat that tacked on there as well. But the science reveals itself that when we and being aware of it is the key. We can't just say, well, why did I gain this fat? Where did this fat come from? Or why am I dropping so much? I'm dropping so much weight. Well, why is that? If it's unwanted weight, especially, why am I losing muscle or losing strength or getting skinnier? Well, there's a reason that we can track through nutrition. And that's why I swear by these things like Harris-Benedict equation to at least know where we're starting from. Now, the numbers may not be perfect. There's a number of other factors involved, including lean body mass, and you could have the same body weight and height and weight, but have totally different body fat percentages for two different individuals. And so these are some factors, but the numbers are pretty good that will let you know basically what you need to consume in order to maintain weight, and then you just do the math and decide what to consume to build and what to consume to drop weight. And the moment you've really figured that out, you have complete control over it, and it's a pretty powerful feeling. And then all you have to do is put in some work, get some work ethic out there, and train and have discipline nutritionally as well. And if you're transparent and accountable and consistent, you will see results.
I love it, Robert, and I think you brought up a really good point, because I myself use the Harrison Benedict calculator just to know where I'm sitting back in my bodybuilding days, now in CrossFit as well. And you think you're having X amount of calories, but until you actually write it down, put in the calculator, you might be on a deficit, you might be on a surplus. And I think it's really, really important for us all to be aware. And I think you reach a certain point where it's almost instinctive.
Yeah.
That you know roughly how many calories you're sitting on and how much of a surplus. So where you are right now, I'd like to find out, while we're on the topic of muscle building, if someone uses the Harrison Benedict calculator to calculate the height, weight, age, and everything else, what, in your experience, would be a good surplus? Be 500 to 800 calories, 1,000 calories, keeping it healthy and obviously whole still, of course.
Yeah. So good question, Luke. I'm a fan of compounding incremental changes. So nobody gets fit overnight. Nobody gets fat overnight or builds body fat overnight. No one drops significant body weight overnight. It's the result of compounding actions over time. So what you do on Monday really has an effect later on the week on Friday. I mean, if we really think about it, what you do in January affects February. What you do in June, will affect December, possibly. It's because things compound. That's how we learn languages. That's how we learn new skills. That's how we learn to become better at something. We adapt over time, and our bodies aren't too different from learning a specific skill. It's just that our bodies will take time to adapt. And so I'm not suggesting that we jump from, if it says we need to eat 3,000 calories a day to maintain weight, we just jump straight to 4,000 calories a day by the next day and just burn ourselves out and burn out our digestive system and burn out our comfort level, but that we can adapt over time. So what that might be is that once we're aware of our calorie consumption and we consume 3,000 calories a day, well, then maybe for the next week, let's try to consume 3,300 calories a day for the whole week, just up by 300, which is what, a couple potatoes or something throughout the entire day. Or it's 3 extra bananas. Bananas about 120 calories. 3 extra bananas throughout the course of the whole day. It's very doable. So we do that every day for a week. And then maybe the next week we go up to 3,500. So another 200 calories. So we just slowly, incrementally progress. And now we're sitting at, just a couple weeks later, maybe 3,500 calories a day, combined with resistance weight training and exercise. We're not letting this get stored as fat. In fact, maybe we're even exercising more now because we have a little bit extra calories or extra appetite. And so this gives us now an opportunity to build, where we were once, just a couple weeks ago, doing 3,000 calories and maintaining weight and not seeing a lot of progress. Now we have an opportunity to get up to 3,500 calories, see some progress, and decide if we need to continue to go up from there. I don't know, aside from triathletes and really ultra marathoners or endurance athletes, I don't know that we often need to get north of 4,000 calories a day. I mean, you get above 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day. This is just really quite high for most people. I mean, as far as just overall health and the health of our digestive system and our intestines and our stomach and kidneys and liver and everything else that's going to take in all of these calories. I think we can find a very practical number that's not too too high or too extreme simply by eating nutrient dense foods. And that's the best way that I know to keep calories relatively low, but enough to still build muscle, because essentially every calorie you eat is going to have the micronutrients, the vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, nitric oxide, fiber, water, everything else in it to give you forward progress without having to take in all this extra supplements or extra food just for the sake of calories when they're really nutrient devoid calories.
For sure, for sure. Like, so you mentioned that you're currently roughly sitting around 3,000-ish calories. Because even after this, I definitely want to visit the fat loss side of things while we're on building muscle. What does 3,000 calories kind of look like?
Part of it is understanding how many calories per pound are in certain foods too, calorie density. So understanding that leafy greens are about 100 calories per pound. So very few calories in leafy greens. We know they're healthy, but they're obviously not going to be a main calorie source. Calories per pound. Fruits, 300 calories per pound. Starchy vegetables, 500 calories per pound. Nuts and seeds, 2,500 calories per pound. So you kind of get that understanding first, I think, and then you start piecing things together. I mean, would a healthy low-calorie breakfast include just lots of tablespoons of oil onto some sort of breads and stuff? No, because now we have an understanding of calorie density. We know where calories come from, and that's how we piece our meals together. So for me, and I've documented this, and I've posted it online for people to check out, of every single thing that I eat in a day. I documented it for about 5 weeks and posted it online. On a blog. It's robertcheeke.net/blog, just anyone to go look at. But what that really looked like was that I would start the day with a bowl of oatmeal with berries and walnuts in it. And again, for functionality, you get about 500 calories per pound in the oats. You get high antioxidants in the dark colored berries, blueberries, raspberries, etc., and omega-3 essential fats in walnuts. And they're a good calorie source too. So it's, again, functional. It's got a purpose. And I would often even eat some whole fruit with that. So even though I have a big bowl of fruit a big bowl of oats with fruit and nuts, I'm having a couple bananas on top of that. Just it's filling. It's something I like to start my day with. And I'll probably have some tea too. I'll have some tea, maybe 8 ounces, 16 ounces. I'll have some water. And that's breakfast. And then for snacks, I typically eat fruit. That's usually bananas, just because they're the most practical, they're easiest, the quickest, they're very calorie dense, they're not watery, they're not messy, they don't have to peel them or seeds all over the place. They're just so practical. I typically eat fruit as snacks. Now I may, like most people, I may have some other things. I may have, crackers, hummus, vegetables, carrots, whatever. These are all pretty low calorie things, but they fall into that snack category. And then for lunch, the most common thing that I really eat, and by documenting this, you become aware of what you're really eating. So I know the most common thing that I really eat is brown rice and beans of some sort, pinto beans, black beans, mixed with avocado, lettuce, tomato. I mean, your typical burrito bowl is what I would eat. I put olives on there, peppers, things like that. And so that's pretty substantial as far as calories, especially with the avocado, maybe some sort of like the olives, or if I do refried beans, maybe they're a little bit heavier in calories. So that's where a lot of those things come from. And then I'll have snack of fruit, typically, maybe different things, maybe slices of apple, maybe oranges, maybe mango, maybe berries, raspberries, blueberries are often in my house, those types of things. And then I tend to head to the gym in the afternoon, late afternoon, evening. And so I'll have some fruit pre-workout, just a banana or two, and maybe some tea, some yerba mate, and I'm good to go. And then when I come home, that's another big meal, and it's a dual purpose. It's post-workout and dinner. I plan it that way. I mean, I work from home. I've got a pretty flexible schedule, but I choose to go to the gym often at that time, so that my post-workout is my dinner. I'm not doing a big post-workout meal and dinner. I'm just combining it. And that is potatoes, sweet potatoes, And that's where I get my leafy green salads in, because I don't eat a lot of those, not a lot of calories in them, but the nutrition is good. So dinner is a time when I make time for that. So so potatoes, sweet potatoes, leafy green vegetables, maybe this time broccoli, which is again fairly heavy, high volume, filling, only 200 calories per pound, but as Dr. Michael Greger says, it's arguably the most important food we could eat for all the different benefits that the cruciferous vegetables have and that broccoli itself has. So that makes its way in. And then later in the day, I may just have some fruit or maybe some almonds or whatever as a snack when I'm sitting here at the computer. And that's what it looks like. And that's roughly 3,000 calories at the end of the day. Now, I will tell you from firsthand experience, the moment I start putting in more processed foods, and this was real because I documented it for 5 weeks, and I was honest with myself and everybody else, that there were days when I was just working from home or not in the mood to make other food, or I had bulk quantities of food, of whole foods that ran out, and I wanted to just do something quick. And I would make frozen burritos that have all the oil and all the processed stuff in them. Or when I would go out and have international cuisine or restaurant food, right? Lots of oil, lots of calories. Ethiopian food or Mexican food or Thai food or Indian food, which are all, as you know, very popular plant-based items, plant-based types of cuisine. Very much a rice and vegetable diet for Thai, Indian, and many others. But loads of oil. I mean, think about pad Thai, think about samosas, think about burritos, think about injera and the foods with Ethiopian food. I documented this when I would go out to restaurants. My calories jumped from not 3,000 or 3,200, but to 4,000, just like that. And that's real. And I had to be honest with myself and my audience, because how many of us get caught into that, go to parties and have vegan ice creams and cakes and cupcakes, and there's a vegan festival and I'm going to go try all these different foods. I'm going to go, hey, it's a social gathering, I'm going to go have some vegan Thai food today. It's all well and good, and it's great to support those restaurants and that food. But we have to know that the moment we step foot in a restaurant, unless it's a salad bar and we don't use dressing, the moment we step foot in a restaurant, we have to understand that our calories are going to go through the roof just by the nature of the oil that is used in food, and oil being 4,000 calories per pound, the most fatty food that we can consume. And we no doubt consume it in large quantities when we go out to restaurants, or in my case, when you have frozen food that you heat up in the microwave or something, vegan burritos, vegan mac and cheese. And these are all things that I ate even a few months ago during times when I was busy and maybe short on time or high stress or whatever. I would eat an entire bag of vegetable fried rice. Now, come on, that's just rice and vegetables, right? The entire bag is about 1,000 calories, and I could eat the whole bag in 20 minutes. And that's a third of my daily intake, just right there. And it's important to know, because without that awareness, we could eat our way into poor health or eat our way into good health. And that's a powerful position to be in when you do have the awareness.
Yeah. What I would like to know, maybe as a final question on the gaining muscle topic, right, is you mentioned there has to be a surplus, but how, and then you increase it incrementally, right? But let's say, is there a relationship between by how much you can increase it in the end compared to how much you're training?
Yeah, it's a good question. And the ratio is always an experiment. How much can I eat? How much can I get away with eating? And how does it maybe positively or negatively impact my training or my performance? I mean, is there a cap that says even if you progressively adapt and load up over the course of months, you just can't stomach more than 5,000 calories? You just can't do it. You can't get the volume. You just can't get the food in. And it becomes a point that why take it to that extreme anyway? I mean, now you have detrimental returns possibly, where you're too tired to work out. Now you're too full. You spend all your time digesting food. You can't even lean on a bench. You can't put your stomach up against it because your stomach's too full, even though you ate hours ago. These are like real world factors you have to put into. So I don't know that it's just numbers. That what's the ideal relationship between taking your nutrition program or diet from where it is to what is optimal for muscle growth and recovery, because I think you have to factor in its impact on training, its impact on your energy, its impact on your sleep. I mean, if you're just eating a lot of food, are you going to be able to sleep very well? So maybe not. Maybe you just can't sleep, and now you're not getting really good recovery from the workouts you're actually doing. These things, I think, matter. Just like one of the reasons why I believe a lot of people miss workouts is because we're either it's either short on time. Time is a big factor. Time is probably the number one thing. But nutritionally, I think there's two things going on there. Nutritionally, we're either too hungry or too full of the reasons why we don't. And that's, I think, the second most popular reason behind being short on time is that, hey, I would go train now, but I'm hungry. If I haven't eaten enough, now I'm too hungry. I'm not going to be at my best. Or I'm too full and I just want to lie down instead. I'm just too tired, or I need to just, burn this off for a little bit by sitting down, and then it gets too late and we just don't go. So beyond that, factors that really have to be considered before we can just say what is optimal. Now, I could estimate that maybe a surplus, when you're trying to build muscle, a surplus of 500 calories per day above your Harris-Benedict equation number of minimum calories required to maintain weight. Doing those 500 surplus every day, or at least every training day over the course of 7 days, will give you an extra, at most, 3,500 calories, or at minimum, maybe 2,000 extra calories. And if they're coming from real food, I think that could play an important factor in building muscle. Just like with losing weight, I think if you could do the same kind of thing, find out what your minimum is to maintain weight, drop it by 500 a day, every day, especially the days that you train, and to get that really efficient fat burning going, and evaluate it over time. And I don't know that you can keep those, and those numbers are the impact they're gonna have is gonna shrink over time too. Obviously, you might see some results right away, like, wow, I ate 3,500 extra calories this week, and look, I gained a pound or something, or I gained a few pounds my first month trying to build muscle. But then those results will slow down naturally over time, obviously, and you will you will get to a point where you're just not making that much more progress. It's going to take more time. It's going to take a change in your training. You got to start getting into some powerlifting movements or Olympic lifts, or just hit the body in a totally different way athletically. So it's hard to say. I mean, really, that's my answer is kind of a long one, because you have to factor in the real world for most people, especially a lot of people listening, who exercise is a part of life, but it's not the main part of life. There's family, there's friends, there's work, there's other things that exercise is just a facilitator to be healthy. So even us, competitive athletes, former champion athletes, in my case, the bodybuilding stage or the running track, been a champion in both areas, I took it a little more seriously than the casual weekend warrior. And I still don't know exactly what's optimal, because you have to just test it for yourself and learn from it.
Of course. I think it's just all about trial and error, and I know you have had several experiences on yourself and several experiments. So I think you mentioned fat loss and dropping body fat. I think that's a good segue for us to move into the next phase, because you did an experiment on yourself, 4 months, I think, on your shredded book. And what's the calorie deficit that you went on, and what does your meals how have your meals or meal plan differed from the very first one, which is 3,000?
I don't remember my exact numbers as far as what my exact deficit was, and I've done these different experiments at different times, and the deficit even changes by the day when I'm doing fat loss efforts or fat loss experiments. It changes dramatically by the day based on what foods I eat that day, and what exercise I do that day. And if I do fat burning cardiovascular exercise and empty stomach first thing in the morning, or if I don't, if I use the Stairmaster, or if I just walk outside more casually or slowly. But in general, I don't know that I ever took my calorie consumption below 2,500 a day for a long period of time, knowing that my minimum calories are closer to my needs are closer to 3,000. I never was going 2,400, 2,200 every day for a long period of time. I know some people do that. That wasn't my style. My approach was that I would rather feel good and nourished and eat more and just do more exercise. And that's something I learned through bodybuilding in the early days too, because when I first got into the sport, I was doing the typical carb depleting, calorie depleting kind of thing. And I would feel, as you might know, Luke, from your days bodybuilding, I mean, I would feel tired and get headaches, and I didn't have the strength and power to get through a workout. And I thought, what's the point of this? I'm reducing my calorie intake dramatically, trying to burn fat, trying to lean out and get shredded for competition. But yet now I can't go through my workouts because I'm too tired. You know, I don't want to drop a dumbbell on my head, or trip on the Stairmaster, you know, and bang my shins because I'm just too tired. And so what I would do is eat a little bit more and power myself up and just spend a little bit extra time, you know, extra 15 minutes on the Stairmaster, maybe in the morning, and an extra 10 minutes walking at night or whatever. And so my goals for fat burning were to be in some sort of deficit by a few hundred calories a day, not too dramatic. Because again, remember, my body drops weight so quickly as a former runner. My body naturally wants to be like 160, 170 pounds. And I like to keep it closer to 200. So if I make any extra fat burning effort, it goes pretty quickly. But muscle size goes too. And if my calories get too low, I lose some size and mass and all that. So Luke, my point is that I don't restrict calories that much when fat burning. What I simply do is have a deficit of a few hundred calories, and then what I do on the other end is that I make sure that those calories come from nutrient dense whole foods. I cut out the extra sugary, you know, the sugar flavored tea, or you know, like the flavored teas that have sugar versus the unsweetened ones. I cut out the frozen foods, the processed foods, the oil-rich foods. I cut that stuff out when I'm trying to do fat burning, and naturally my calories go down as a result, of course. And then I just up my cardio a bit, and I find ways to do it in easy ways. Again, I'm a real practical person. I think my approach is real. Like, take an extra walk with the dog. You know, I've got two dogs sitting here right now. They're being nice and quiet. You know, take an extra walk with the dogs. Park kind of far away at the gym, and so you have to walk further to the door. Same with the grocery store. Carry a grocery basket instead of pushing a cart. I do all these little things in the real world where I want to burn a few extra calories. I do calf raises while I'm standing in line at the bank or at the grocery store. I do push-ups in between sets, even when I'm training back, maybe, because it's not going to affect my back. My back's recovering during that 2-minute rest period, but I'm going to train my chest and burn a few extra calories. That kind of stuff. That's my approach to fat loss. I'm not just big on numbers of reducing calories and trying to find an optimal spot of slashing through my calories and seeing what happens over time. I'm more interested in how does this fit into my lifestyle and what little things can I do? Like, I've got stairs at home. Sometimes I rarely ever use them. I don't go upstairs very often. But if I want to burn more calories, I'll find reasons to go upstairs, and I'll just walk up, you know, up and down, grab things and do that, because that's how it fits in the real world for me. So that's how I would answer my fat burning approach. And I will leave one more thing with that. I found nothing to be more effective in my experience than just getting up in the morning on an empty stomach and just climbing on the Stairmaster, just climbing stairs, just climbing when I haven't had anything to eat in 8 or 9 or 10 hours, and just burn, and get to a really efficient and effective fat burning zone and just watch body fat come off over the course of weeks and months.
Yeah, and would you also say, obviously there's always the risk of if you cut too much, you're going to mess up your metabolism. Is there like a number, right, where you say like a couple hundreds is safe over 3 weeks, but don't do 500 over 2 months or something?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you don't want to just go from 3,000 calories a day to 1,300 calories a day and say, wow, I'm just going to drop weight like crazy now because I'm going to stop eating. Yeah, that can mess you up metabolically. And I've never been a fan of really low calories. I mean, I understand calorie restriction as far as longevity and all that, but as an athlete, there's a lot of benefits to being an athlete too, as far as just greater bone density and strength and greater endurance and great circulation and flexibility and all of these things that I think can help with longevity too. And from the athletic standpoint, I've always taken the stance that rather than dramatically reducing calories, I'm just going to burn more by doing real stuff, by mowing the lawn, by taking the dog for a walk, by going for a hike, by getting on the bike instead of in the car, for jogging instead of walking, that kind of stuff. That is what I think really makes a difference over time and doesn't mess you up metabolically. It doesn't make you feel starving or hungry, which can cause you to overeat and binge on foods like chocolate and fatty foods. You can still eat consistently and eat healthy and just diminish your calories a little bit or reduce them a tiny bit and just do more active stuff and spend a little less time in a chair or at the computer or in front of the TV. And you'd be surprised the results you can make in the real world by just doing those small little changes.
So for someone who's time poor, and I know a lot of people who have families who are working long hours, for example, maybe not going to meal prep, but what does your fridge look like? Do you prepare on a Sunday? How do you keep food healthy at home? Because I think you shared that in your book about preparing certain foods over the weekend and just having it in your fridge the whole week. So could you share some strategies where that's concerned?
Yeah, absolutely, Luke. That is a huge component because, as my friend Chef AJ says, referring to food in general, and like if we're trying to eat healthy foods, for example, one thing we need to do is to avoid, obviously, the unhealthy foods. So we need to try to keep them away. So Chef AJ says, if it's in your house, it's in your mouth. So even if we want to bring in treats and bring in this kind of, chocolates and all this stuff and say, well, I'll just have it on occasion or on a holiday or whatever. If it's in your house, get it, have it in your mouth when you're tired, when you're stressed, when you want to celebrate, when you're short on time, whatever. So my best advice, Luke, is to do these two things, is to fill your house with plant-based whole foods. Lots of different fruits, leafy greens, things that you can access immediately that take zero preparation. Berries. I mean, once I've had, I don't know what, maybe you've beaten this record. I'd be interested to hear. I had 19 different types of fruit at home at one time. So guava, persimmon, chirimoya, mango, avocado, cherries, raspberries, blueberries, banana, orange, grapefruit, strawberry, watermelon, pineapple. You get the idea. Some exotics and some very common, apple, orange, banana, very common here in North America. So that's the point. The point is to be prepared. If you have lots of different great tasting fruits, I mean, fruit can be boring if you're just eating oranges all day long, just sticky and watery, and you're like, I want something more filling. Well, great. Have a mango. Have avocado. Have mamey. Have something that's heavy, maybe even pineapple or melons that are just heavier. It's a totally different fruit experience. Or if you're just eating berries only, you're like, oh, these little berries, and I'm not getting very many calories in these little berries. Okay, let's have, some big chunks of papaya, of honeydew, of cantaloupe. There's just heavier stuff, and that's a great way to, or big plump strawberries, or whatever else. So the best advice that I have is to prepare ahead of time with lots of healthy foods, and then discover and determine what your staple foods are going to be. And for me, that happens to be things like potatoes, brown rice, lentils, beans, oats, quinoa. These are things you can prepare in bulk and just leave them in the refrigerator. I had this giant bowl of quinoa, and I just finished it the other day because I'll have quinoa. I'll pour soup on top of it or something. I put leafy green salad greens on it. I put salsa on it. I put beans in it. So that's there. It's there for days. Same with brown rice. I make big batches of brown rice, and I have that available to mix with all kinds of things, with lentils or with beans, or in tacos or burritos, or many other ways to prepare them. And I have oats. So I have oatmeal already made. I don't have to wake up in the morning, oh, I'm short on time, I'm busy, I need this to be done now. Well, it's already there. Just heat it up, and it's done. Add maybe some fresh fruit on top if you want, or maybe it already has mixed fruit in it, which we often do. We make large quantities of oatmeal with fruit already mixed in. So if you're prepared with healthy staples, and you have all the other accessory foods like fruits and leafy greens to add in to all these entrees, then you're set, and you don't have to grab for potato chips or frozen tamales, or filled with oil, or a bag of fried rice like me for 1,000 calories of a little meal that's just greasy, of oil all over the place, all over the place. So that's what I encourage people to do. And if you keep the bad food out of the house and keep the good food in with high quantities, you're in good shape.
Yeah, I love the tip, like what's in your house goes in your mouth. That's just so simple, and it's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like maybe to wrap up, because you've done it for 20 years now, and you've done running, you've bodybuilding, and obviously helped other people as well. Maybe share some of your favorite stories to tell, either to inspire people, also going through the ups and downs as an athlete.
Yeah. Well, I've got a few. I think most of us have. I have all kinds of things that come to mind from, as a bodybuilder, having posing oil mishaps, where I had the wrong kind of oil put on, and I was like just literally dripping on the stage and hoping not to slip and fall. And as I would try to hit a pose, I was just slimy. I couldn't even grab my and another competition when I hadn't even put my tan on, and I learned that I had to be on stage in 20 minutes. So I had like 3 people with gloves on, just putting tan on. And then once I got up there, I was flexing, and I was more focused on getting photos for the competition. It was my early 20s, and I was trying to get photos for vegan bodybuilding. So I kept nodding to my friend to take pictures. And I think people thought it was my first time competing, even though I had competed many times, because I was in shock. I had just got my tan put on a few minutes ago, and while on stage, I was trying to do head nods to my friend, and I was trying to get him to take pictures, And so people were like, "Who's this guy on stage? He's really nervous." But also other things like we talked about before recording, where I shared some of my background when I really tried to get into bodybuilding. I mean, I was looking at muscle magazines. I was putting like pictures on my wall. I was 19 years old, I think, and I really aspired to be this big muscle guy. I started going into vitamin stores and buying these supplements, and vegan ones, of course. I was vegan back then, and I was determined to be that after photo, the before and afters. And after an entire year of just training, enthusiasm, and being excited about it, I gained 1 pound. I basically made no progress. I looked just like the runner that I was in college. And it wasn't until a little bit later on that I realized that I just wasn't putting myself in a position to build muscle. And the very next month, I would stumble upon the Bill Phillips Body for Life program. I would gain 19 pounds in 12 weeks, 28 pounds in 10 months, another 10 pounds after that, and become a competitive bodybuilder the very next year. There were times when I was no longer interested in bodybuilding. I mean, for a period of time, in the early days especially, when there were only a few of us, you could really count the number of bodybuilders that were known on the internet on one hand, really. And so I felt a lot of pressure to represent vegan bodybuilding as an individual. I had to do well in the competitions. I had to represent myself as the only vegan guy out there doing this, one of the few guys in North America doing it, one of the few in the world doing it at the time that I knew of. And there were times I hated bodybuilding. I hated going to the gym. It just became a burden, so I stopped. I quit. So throughout my bodybuilding career, I never had a consistent, just lots of years dedicated. I would get tired of it after a year or two and stop. I had lower back problems throughout my entire career that started before bodybuilding that held me back a bit. But one of those times when I got out of bodybuilding, I dropped down really in body weight, 160 pounds, 170, got back into running. And a friend asked me if I wanted to run this 3-hour timed race. And I said, of course not. That doesn't sound very fun at all. Because I was just getting back into running. I hadn't done it in 10 years, and I could barely run down the street or run on the basketball court. No. So when he said, you want to do this 3-hour race, I thought, absolutely not. This sounds horrible. And he said, well, it's coming up on December 8th. And I said, wait, what's that? When? And he said, it's coming up on December 8th, 2012. And that was significant to me because December 8th was the day that I became vegan in 1995. And this was in about August. So I had, September, October, November? I had 3 or 4 months of training. I was just getting started. I could barely run. But I trained, and I trained with meaning and with determination. I thought, what kind of story could this tell if I could do well? It's on at that time, I think it was my 18th vegan anniversary, racing that day, representing veganism. It'd be a special moment. So I did. I trained hard. I timed myself. I started dropping body weight a little bit, and my endurance went up. And sure enough, on race day, I just felt amazing. I mean, it's the best I'd felt physically in as long as I can remember. And I was doing well in the race. I was in the top 5 throughout the first 2 hours of the race, running on this 1 kilometer track through the woods. You couldn't see more than 100 meters in front of you at a time. It was hard to tell where you were, but you would lap people, and you would maybe never see people you saw at the start. I never saw them because I was close enough to them, but not close enough to see them, and they weren't quite passing me, but I knew they were ahead of me. But I found out I was in the top 5, and so I just kept working hard. I was in a lot of pain, but I kept running. And then finally, I happened to see, with 28 minutes left or something, the guy who was leading the race, because I heard at this point I was in second. I think I heard. I saw him off to the side tying his shoes. And so I quickly ran past him. He was still a full lap ahead of me, though, full kilometer ahead. And I'm not even sure that he saw me when he was tying his shoe. And I just kept going in a lot of pain. And I eventually, when the final bell rang, there's a few minutes left in the race, I just kicked it into high gear and just sprinted it as hard as I could. And I was doing just a full-on sprint, like you're running 100 meters, but I did it for a full, about 1,500 meters, more than a full lap. And I eventually came around the corner and brushed by this guy. I think I literally brushed him. I brushed by him, and he even yelled something like, "What? Like what's going? What's going on?" And I passed the guy who had been leading the race for 2 hours and 59 minutes on the final turn. And I ended up winning the race by 8 seconds and set a new course record. And that record still stands 5 years later. But during the course of that race, it was on an 85-degree day, Fahrenheit, in Texas. I had sunscreen on. It was hot. I had no shirt on, after the first 30 minutes of the race or so. Sunscreen went in my eyes so I could barely see, and I couldn't wipe my glasses off on my shorts because my shorts were soaked. And so I couldn't see through my glasses, and I had stinging in my eyes. But what I could see was that there was a guy who was representing a beef team. It said "Powered by Beef," and I passed him. I lapped him about 7 times during that race as a vegan guy. And I mean, it's a bit of an oxymoron too, because we know that protein is the least efficient source of energy. We know energy comes from carbohydrates and fats, which I was fueled up. I only ate fruit that day. That's it. I fueled up on bananas and blueberries and other fruits before that 3-hour race. I never ate during the race. I just had water. And I covered about 22 and a half miles and had an amazing race. But it was interesting to just blow past the Powered by Beef and so many other athletes. And I was eating a whole food diet inspired by Dr. Campbell. And later that day, I was at a hockey game, cheering on our local hockey team. And I was in the gym the very next day. And this is something, that kind of effort, that's basically running a marathon. I mean, I was just a few miles short of marathon. I basically ran a marathon, essentially, and was in the gym the next day because of my recovery from plant-based whole foods. So it's kind of a funny story, but also hopefully an inspiring story, because it was one of the best days for me. I was hoping just to finish in the top 10 and tell a good story about veganism on my anniversary. And I was able to win the race and set a course record, having only been removed from bodybuilding for a number of months. And you bet I shared that story enthusiastically and in Shred It, as you know. But those are some of the stories from over the years, from bodybuilding mishaps to there's a little dog over there. Come here, I'm almost done. Come here. A little chihuahua. She's 5 pounds. She's probably gonna keep barking if I over here. Come over here. Okay, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that's an incredible story, and I think following you from the start, Robert, you just have inspired me. As I shared with you, your reading your vegan bodybuilding and fitness book was what really opened my eyes to this whole lifestyle and being an athlete as well. So thank you for that, and thank you for the work that you do as well. I mean, from your little forum to vegan bodybuilding and fitness with. You've got so many athletes now, and your forum, the forum on Facebook has just blown up, and right now moving towards your new book as well, which we didn't really chat about. I'm sure we will down the track. I'd love for you to leave the audience with Robert's top 3 tips for becoming the best version of yourself.
Yeah, my top tips are they're often some quotes from some others, because there've been a lot of brilliant people, of course, that have come before us in many walks of life. And one of my favorite quotes is from Mark Twain, who said,
"He wants to come on."
Yeah, come here.
Come on.
Come here. There we go. You sit up here for the final. Here we
Final
go.
3 tips.
Yeah, final 3 tips.
And
okay.
What's his or her name?
This is Ellie.
Hello, Ellie.
She's a rescue Chihuahua we got just a few months ago. We have another one, Benny. He's at my feet, and he's deaf, so he's just content hanging out down there. And we've had him for about 6 years. He's about 11. She's 2 years old. Anyway, so my 3 things to leave you with are, one is a quote from Mark Twain, who said, 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the things that you did do. And I really take that to heart, because whether it's 20 years from now or 2 years from now or 2 months from now, we don't want to be asking what might have been. What might have been had I shared that information, that life-saving information with someone, or had I decided to pursue a dream that I was passionate about. But I never did. I just never got around to it. I didn't care enough to do it. And I could have had a tremendous impact on someone's life, or many people's lives, and certainly on the lives of animals, but I just didn't care to do it. And so I think about that all the time. And that's why I think about and appreciate the decision that I made back in 1995 to become vegan, because of all the things that it's done over 20 years for me and for those around me, for the animals, for the planet, for people. I think it's been fairly significant. And so I think about that quote that we have 1,440 minutes in a day. What are we doing with it? And how do we choose to make our time well spent? And without having to have lots of regrets. We can't avoid having regrets. They're always going to be there, but we can minimize them by saying, you know what? I believe in something, and I believe in it enough to dedicate important and valuable time in my life to this cause, whatever that cause may be. And that changed the way I looked at so many things in relationships, in sports, in academics, in nutrition, in fitness, and in life. And I think if other people can embrace that, we will have a lot of passionate people going out there doing very meaningful work. So that's number one. Number two comes from another quote from Rumi, who said, "Let yourself be silently drawn by the strong pull of what you love." And I like that because I was naturally a good runner. I had no business in bodybuilding. I was the least likely guy to run veganbodybuilding.com, be a competitive bodybuilder, become a champion vegan bodybuilder. I was barely 100 pounds at age 15. On top of that, I was vegan before the internet. I was not expected to succeed. To succeed in the sport of bodybuilding. It just wasn't in the cards for me. It wasn't in my genetics. It wasn't in my DNA. It wasn't in my history. Robert, you should stick to something you're good at. Stick to what you're used to, which is running. But a decade or two before ever hearing that quote, I followed it myself. I let myself be silently drawn to the strong pull of what I loved, which was to challenge myself and better myself to become a stronger person. I didn't know that I would be a bodybuilder, but I knew I wanted to be bigger and stronger because I wanted to represent the fact that as a compassionate vegan individual, I could put on muscle, which was unheard of during those days in the 90s. So that's something. And then my own quote that I often sign in books is to train hard, to eat well, smile often, and lift others up. I think that combination, if you just work hard and if you fuel yourself with the right kind of food, which is good for all of us. I mean, it's good for the animals, good for the planet, it's good for yourself and those around you. And you smile often, which is contagious. And if you take the time to reach down and lift others up, I think that is just one of the most powerful moves that we can make in our lives. And there's so many people who do need to be lifted up. And there's so many people who need encouragement so that they will follow their passion, or they will follow whatever silently pulls at their heart, or what they want to pursue so they won't regret it 5, 10, 20 years down the road. I think that's one of the most meaningful things that we can do is to lift others up. And if we just focus on those things, we will naturally find ourselves eating healthy foods, working out because we want to, finding forms of exercise that we truly enjoy, and we will very likely be some sort of a role model for those who observe our actions and say, wow, that person is healthy, happy, and fit, and I want to be like them. What are they doing? And that's, I think, the take-home message is how can we find ways to bring happiness to those we encounter, human and non-human animals alike. And I think our actions will dictate that if we follow those 3 steps. So that's what I would wrap up with. And I think Ellie agrees, right?
I think
Ellie
she
agrees,
does.
yes.
She's in agreement for sure. She's always in agreement. Fantastic, Robert. Thank you very much for your time, and really, really got a lot of value from our chat today. Lots of practical tips and lots of inspiration.
Well, thank you. Thank you both. I appreciate the opportunity, and I wish you all the best with your outreach that you're doing with Plant Fit Summit and with all the great plant-based athletes you've had on here, and for all the work that you do to inspire and lift others up. So thank you, and I will be sure to send you copy of Plant-Based Muscle when it's done. We're actually hoping to send out peer reviews possibly this week. So maybe you'll be one of the first to get a chance to look at it.
Please, I would love to read it. And also, yeah, I mean, thank you for being a part of my first book as well. And probably down the track, I'm sure we'll cross paths again. But appreciate it and thank you.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you both. Appreciate it.
We hope you've got a lot of value and inspiration from this presentation. For live Q&As and updates on the summit, join our Facebook group. You'll find the link below. Our goal is to reach 1 million people and help them become plant-fit inspirations in their communities. We believe that the right food and exercise can change your life, inspire those around you, and save the planet. Feel the same? Then check out our Plant Fit for Life package. Click the button below for more information and incredible bonuses by our experts. This is Toby and Luke signing off from the Plant Fit Summit, and see you for the next presentation.